All right, hello everyone. I hope everyone's having a wonderful day. So my name is Abd, and today we are going to talk about situational and ethical questions. And those are very textbook examples of MMI. They are very, very common, and most likely you will spend a lot of your time with those questions. So let's make sure we have a good idea and a good plan on how to tackle those questions and how to approach those questions. And I like to start this video with reminding everyone that people are different. They like to approach things in a different way, and that's totally okay. That's totally acceptable. And as long as one method or another works for you, that's perfect. I will just give you how I approach it, and hopefully you can learn and copy some or all of it. So first thing, when it comes to ethical questions, you have to acknowledge that you are most likely in a specific position. You are given either you are a student, or you are a teacher, or you are a coach, or you are a doctor or a dentist, or a researcher, whatever is the ethical question about. And you definitely in this question have some sort of responsibility, whether it's toward yourself or toward someone else or toward an institution or toward the community. So you have to ask yourself, okay, when I'm faced with this dilemma or this question, what are my responsibilities and how can I achieve them? I just want to give you some examples of that. Let's say you are a researcher and you see your another researcher in your team changing the data. For example, how do you tackle that? Or what would be your responsibility in the situation is that you are a researcher, you have a responsibility toward the academic community to fix this problem that you see. You have a responsibility toward the institution that is paying you for your research. They expect authentic data, so you have responsibility toward the institution that is paying you. You also have a responsibility toward the wider community, who will use your research and maybe even build things on top of your research based on your research. So you also have a responsibility toward those people. So that's how you want to think about it. You want to think, yes, this is my position and those are my responsibilities. And then acknowledging complexity, usually sometimes it's more complexity of the situation. Sometimes it's more sensitivity of the situation. Sometimes they give you an ethical question, and this ethical question have a very sensitive tone to it. Like whatever you do will have a lot of consequences on either yourself or those around you. So acknowledging both of responsibility and complexity is a good way to start, because the interviewer will see that you are mature, you have a deep perspective into things. Then, usually this is my first actual point. This is my first main point that I talk about, which is gathering more information and damage control. These two, gathering more information and damage control. What does that mean? When they give you a STEM question in the MMI, they never give you all the information that you need. There's always more information that you can gather that hopefully will help you in making the decision. And that is where some students get it wrong. Sometimes they try to make the decision just based on the information that they have. That you don't have to do that. You can just say, before doing anything, I want to start by speaking to this person and seeing why did they do that. Did they not know, for example? Let me give you an example on gathering more information so you have a better idea. Let's go back to the research example. You are a research assistant and you see your supervisor changing data. Okay, how do you handle that? Well, number one, you have to acknowledge responsibility and acknowledging complexity and sensitivity. You might lose your job if you do something wrong, and that's something to acknowledge. And then you go into gathering more information. You want to speak to your supervisor. Ask this person, your supervisor, about the changes. Why did they do it? Maybe you misunderstood them. Maybe it was actually authentic changes that were needed to be done, or maybe they said, you know what, we are redoing the whole study, and those are the new data. Or maybe they had to do a specific calculation for their statistics, and you just did not know that this exists, and those are the new data. Maybe all of those things you just don't know. So it's good to approach them and to ask them about why they are doing that, and gather more information. Maybe, for example, another quick example is you see a student cheating, right? Maybe take them to the side, speak to them in a transparent way, in a non-confrontational way. Ask them, look, I might have seen it wrong. I don't want to assume, but I saw you looking at this paper during the exam. Can you tell me what was this paper? Were you cheating, or did I misunderstood? You know, maybe it was. Like maybe they forgot the sheet in their pocket and then they were just trying to get it out, or maybe it was a sheet about like you know it was just about something totally different. Maybe it was a pill for like from Walmart or something. So you have to gather more information before going to making a decision. I'll give a better example at the end. So then following to gathering more information is never assuming. For example, a good example for assuming and never assuming is, for example, age, right? Maybe they will give you a STEM and they might give you the age of the person. However, most often they won't even give you the age. So it's very important to say, okay, I want to know how old is this person? Like, are they like children? Or are they like older adults? Or are they people my age? Because the way you approach the situation will be very different if it was a child or if it was someone who's a mature adult. And then we talked about damage control. Sometimes with those ethical questions, there is an element of urgency, right? Maybe, for example, a patient is bleeding and you are not sure you should give them a blood transfusion or not, and you have very limited time. So there is an element of urgency in the question. In that situation, it's important to acknowledge the urgency and speak about trying to damage control as much as possible. So, for example, you see your colleague, you are a doctor or you are a dentist, and you see your colleague dentist yelling at the patient and saying, maybe racist slurs, right? Damage control in this situation would be to calm down the situation, maybe take the patient to the side, apologize to them, give them something to drink while you speak to the doctor, or like trying to manage the damage basically. And I think this is very important to be discussed, because what happens with most students is that they understand that there is an urgency in the question, so they try to rush their answer. Excuse me. They tend to skip important steps because in the back of their heads they are saying, this is urgent, there is no time to do this, there is no time to take second opinions, there is no time to take this person on the side and ask him what happened, because I'm trying to quickly acknowledge the urgency. So to help yourself, to do yourself a favor, instead of rushing everything and your answer being chaotic and skipping important points, acknowledge the urgency and start with saying, if this was time sensitive, I will have to make a decision within 30 seconds or 1 minute on like how can I minimize the damage. Once you acknowledge the time sensitivity, you can just say, if I have time, I wanna talk to this person. If I have time, I wanna talk to that person. If I have time, I wanna take another opinion from another person. If I have time, I wanna do this. If I have time, I wanna do that. This way, you acknowledge the complexity, you acknowledge the time sensitivity of the question, yet you still answered perfectly fine. So damage control is very important, especially when there is need for damage control and when there is a time-sensitive element to the question. Now, sometimes, excuse me, sometimes we freeze. Sometimes you don't know what to say next. Sometimes you don't even have ideas on what to say. If that was the situation, I think it's a very important idea to try to come with more points to talk about. Always think of the extremes. If everything went wrong, how would that look like? For example, let's go back to the student who's cheating question. How can things go very, very wrong? Let's ask ourselves this question. Well, they might be able to cheat. Maybe they will cheat this time, and then another time, and then a third time, and then they will get caught, and maybe they will get kicked out of the institution, whether it's in university or high school. Or maybe they will cheat, and then they will pass. They will become, if they were lawyers, or they might be like pilots, or they might be dentists and engineers, and then they might not know how to do their work properly. They might put others' lives at risk. They might put their own job at risk, just because they were cheating when they were in university, for example. So, or maybe, for example, this student is cheating, and then that student is cheating, and then that student is cheating, and then everyone's cheating. Now, the institution loses its credibility, and then those marks that we get at the end of the term do not mean anything because everyone's cheating, everyone's doing whatever they want. So now the integrity of the institution is harmed. Now the public does not trust that I have a degree in this or a degree in that because everyone's cheating. So you see what I did here? I said, okay, let's say how would it look like if everything went wrong? You can even do that with other question, the researcher question, right? Okay, we are changing data. What is the worst thing that could happen? Maybe some other research will try to build, I don't know, maybe medication based on our study, and then they will spend millions of dollars expecting results because our study said a certain thing when in fact it didn't. It was incorrect. Maybe the public will start to lose its trust in the research system and the academic sphere. So thinking of extremes always get you good points to talk about, and it gives you a deep insight into the consequences of the certain action or the consequences of a certain problem. So think of extremes. Now next move on. Think of all who is affected. Also an important point. For example, let's say for example you are a doctor in a hospital or in a clinic, and then you are working a normal shift, and then you see a colleague or a nurse who is drunk, let's say. Okay, now how would you handle the situation? Yes, you will gather more information. Maybe they are not drunk. Maybe you assume they were drunk. Maybe they have a medical condition. Maybe they were just out of sleep, right? So I will start by talking to them. Are you all right? Take them to the side, get them coffee, get them somewhere to sit to see what's going on, and then I will speak to them. Is everything all right? Do you seem not okay? I don't want to assume, but did you drink or did I misunderstood? And then I'll damage control. If this doctor or this healthcare worker was maybe putting others' lives at risk, I want to go and say, you know what? I will take it from here. You can go sit down there, check with the patient, see everything is all right, make sure the work is done, and then I will speak to them. So damage control. And then think of extremes. That's an excellent one. Maybe what would it look like if I don't report this doctor? He's drinking and I don't report him. Excuse me. Well, maybe he will harm another patient. Maybe even give them wrong medications, cause them a very serious disability. Maybe they will lose their license next time. Maybe they would put even maybe the public will start to lose their trust in the healthcare system. The credibility of doctors or nurses or whoever it is will be impacted. The credibility of the institution, whether it is a clinic or a hospital, will be impacted. And then this connects to this, which is who is affected, right? We already mentioned the institution you are working in. It will be affected. The credibility of whatever process it is, whether it's a degree you are getting, whether it's a license you are having, the credibility of this process, the trust of the public in this institution, how the risk on that person himself or herself. If someone was drinking, someone is cheating, someone is doing this, someone is doing that, there's risk to that person. You need to help them improve and fix this problem they have. There is a risk on yourself sometimes. So always ask yourself and be have a broad mind, an open mind about the answers to those questions. Who is affected? Think of as many. Maybe it's not this person. Maybe it's also his family that could be affected. Maybe if something happens to them, the family will be struggling. So that's also important. Excuse me. And then taking actions. Once you collected all the information, once you spoke about the complexity of the situation and you spoke about your responsibility in the situation, Once you talked about the extremes and once you talked about damage control, okay, now what? How do we come to a decision on what to do in this situation? That is taking action. And this is my second point. So my first point is gathering information and damage control. Second point is taking action. And in this point, I usually really love to use this style, which is the if then style. I'll say if this is that, then I'll do this. If this is that, then I'll do that. So let me give you an example. Let's say, again with the example of the maybe, let's go with the healthcare worker who is drunk, for example, or under the influence of alcohol. Okay, maybe if they were actually maybe if they were not drunk, maybe it was like a medical condition or they were tired, then I will thank them for telling me. I will apologize for assuming that they were drunk, and I will try to help them either get a rest or take time off, so that I maybe cover them or find someone to cover for them, so that they can make sure that they are safe and their patients are safe. If, on the other hand, they were drunk, then maybe it is I will give them the opportunity to report themselves, to apologize for what they did, and I will hopefully advocate for them with the management, so that they hopefully can get a more lenient punishment with that. So yeah, maybe in the situation with the student who is cheating, for example, maybe, let's skip that, so I keep the video short. But yeah, if then is excellent, and it also really helps you with one thing. I want you to focus with me. When you say if then, sometimes it's very clear. You know exactly. If they were not drunk, obviously you're not gonna report them, right? If they were drunk, obviously you are gonna report them. So these two are clear. There's always this gray area in the middle where even you are not sure. Like, I'm not sure, like, should I report this case, or should I do this, or should I do that? I'm not sure. When you do if then, it helps you get rid of this gray zone, because you just say if tick, 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 all the boxes checked, then I'll do that. If all the boxes are unchecked, I will do this, right? So that's how the taking action plan work, and I will use it with the example at the end. Now, let's talk a little bit about other important points. Once I talk about the action plan, I usually like to talk about future protective mechanisms or measures. How can we make sure whatever this ethical problem, whatever this dilemma that happened, how can we make sure it does not happen again? Maybe we can do educational programs for the students about cheating. Maybe we can do investigations or like some sort of systematic investigation for researchers. Maybe we can do some like mental health checks for doctors, and making sure that they are not drinking before work. Or maybe it's like the ethical questions about some discrimination about a minority. Then maybe it will be like some educational workshop for the workers. It can be many things, but you have to think, how can we prevent this problem from happening in the future? The second thing is prevention on a larger scale, which is very similar, so I'll skip this point. But another thing that you can talk about, especially if you have time left, especially if you don't know what to say next, is this. Relating it to medicine and dentistry. There's always different ways you can relate to medicine and dentistry. Almost always when they ask you a question with an ethical problem, it has to relate to medicine or dentistry. This is an assumption, but I think it's a very fair assumption that there is always somehow you can relate the question to medicine or dentistry, and you can always also, even with an ethical question, you can end with a story, a personal story. Maybe the question is about your neighbor who is really struggling to take care of their child, for example. And then, do you report child neglect, or do you not report child neglect? And that's the question. For example, the personal story could really be like, you might have a good personal story that really relates to the question, right? So you end up your answer with this person's story. You know what? This question really reminds me of this that happened to me, and I want to share it with you. And then you go and then we talk about how to narrate a story correctly and appropriately in another video. So I don't want to delve into that. But personal story is always a card in your pocket you can use if you need to. Now let's end this session with an example. So the example here is you witness two girls hitting a homeless woman and taking her stuff. Now the homeless person has a nosebleed. It should be a homeless woman, my bad. Has a nosebleed. How would you approach the situation? Now, let's follow this exact approach. I would start by saying, this is a very sensitive situation. Maybe there is a problem going on. Maybe it's unsafe for that girl. Maybe it's unsafe for me. So I wanna first acknowledge that I have a responsibility to help that person if I can. I don't want. There's a very sad human nature, or a very sad phenomena called social loafing, where or the bystander effect. The bystander effect, where when everyone is seeing something, everyone end up to just ignore it, and I don't want to be part of that bystander effect. If I see the woman who really needs help, who's in a bad situation, I want to be the one who actually approach her and help her if I can. So I will start by gathering more information. I want to make sure I am safe. Does there seem like to be a weapon around there? Does there seem to be like a gang maybe that could be harmful? Does the person seem stable, or do they seem like they are a danger to me? Would I be able to defend myself if they got aggressive? Is there people around, or are we alone in the middle of the night? So where did this happen? I want to know. Like, is it in a very scary looking alley and you are only alone? Then maybe I will need to consider that more. Or is it some public street where there's a lot of people passing by? I want to gather more information. How old is this person? Like, maybe she's a child. Maybe she looks like a woman, but maybe she's a child. Maybe she was just leaving from school and some students bullied her, for example. So I want to know that. Or is she someone who's like a lot older that might have a nosebleed when I see it from the outside, but maybe they broke a bone because they are fragile. Maybe they are old. I wanna look into that, and then I wanna approach the lady. And firstly, I wanna start by approaching her in a safe way. I'm sure she will be scared. Any person faced with that, they will be scared. They will feel unsafe. So I wanna first start by calming her down and making sure that she understands that I'm here to help. I'm not here to harm her. So I will introduce myself. Maybe give her some water, maybe help her with the nosebleed if I have napkins, and then I want to ask if she's alright, if she feels pain anywhere. maybe like I said, maybe from the outside it looks like only a nosebleed. Maybe she broke a rib, maybe she broke a bone. So I wanna make sure that she's alright, she does not suffer any pain anywhere. And then I maybe will see if maybe I can take her to a grocery store, or like an open coffee shop or anything like that, so that hopefully we are not in the street, we are not outside where it could be unsafe for her. If I have the time and the financial abilities, then I would even maybe get her something warm to eat to calm down, and then I want to ask her about what happened. I want to hear her side of the story. And I want to listen with an open mind, because I want to take what she tells me with a grain of salt. Yes, maybe she's saying the truth, and that might be very likely to be true. But maybe she's skipping important details. Maybe the stuff that the girls took from her are not hers to begin with. Maybe she stole them, and those girls were just trying to get their stuff back. Maybe she did something to them, and they were just avenging that. So I want to try to understand what's happening, and I want to see, like, is this the first time this happened, or is this something that's going on for a very long time? Maybe those girls try to bully her all the time, once or twice every day, or once or twice every week. So I want to understand that. I want to see, once she tells me all this information, I wanna first damage control. If I see that there is any broken bones, if I feel like the person is in danger, or they maybe are very anxious or very scared, then I will need to ask for help. I will not be the person appropriate for that situation, and I will try to seek help, whether it is 911 or whether it is social services to help me handle the situation. And then, thinking of extremes, let's think of some extremes for the situation. Maybe this person have a knife. Maybe this person have a knife, and they are very scared, and they will hit you with it the second they see you. Maybe the two girls who left, they will come back maybe with more people, and they might hit her again or hit you again. So you have to keep in mind maybe changing locations is necessary. Maybe if I was a woman and that person, that homeless person, was a man, I have to also be careful for my own safety. Maybe they will do something to me, right? Maybe again, maybe that person is maybe wanted. Maybe they harmed someone very severely. Maybe they stole something very important. So it's important to understand that there are some extremes, and try to come with as many extremes and mention as many extremes in your interview as possible to get to show depth of thought. Now, let's talk about taking action. Let's take action. Okay, so if the person needed, if the person seemed all right, if it was a one-time thing, they were stable. They thanked me. They did not have pain anywhere. They had the nosebleed stopped, and the person seemed like they were in a good condition. I will still offer help. I will still offer maybe connect them to a shelter around, maybe connect them to social services. If they refuse, that's totally okay. I will try to do my part. If I feel that, we are maybe it's 12 at night, and maybe that person is seem very sketchy, they seem like they might have a weapon, if the area seem unsafe, then in that situation, I will not interfere myself. Instead, I'll call 911 to help me, right? So again, you have to, if then your way out of it. If this, that, then this, that. Okay, once we finish the if then, we move to extra points. Depending on how much time we have left, we try to mention those points. For example, okay, future protective measures. How can we make sure those things does not happen again? We need to make sure there are services for homeless people. This is why those services are very important. We want to make sure there are shelters to protect them, shelters that know those people, know them by name, and know where they are doing, where they are, and hopefully try to help them in whatever way they can. So let's say one of those homeless people is getting bullied by the other homeless people. They know about that, and they have a system in place to protect those vulnerable individuals. Another thing that we could talk about is relating it to medicine. I will tell you a very nice way to relate this question to medicine. You could say, I really feel with so you could say, sometimes in medicine, to help others, we have to put ourselves in a little bit of risk. This is one of the situations, right? It might be safer for me to just do nothing. It's definitely safer. It's definitely, the smarter thing to do. I don't say that actually in the interview. Maybe that's a bad idea to say in the interview. But you can just say, it's definitely safer for me to just not interfere at all. Act like I did not say anything, like all the people who were around and did nothing. But that is not the right thing to do. And that is also true when you are a practicing physician. Sometimes your patient really needs your help. Sometimes you see something wrong and you need to fix it. Sometimes this could have consequences on you, and it comes to each person among us and how much they are willing to take when it comes to risk on self to hopefully help others while also maintaining your own safety as much as possible. So that's one way to relate to medicine. Another way could maybe this person will be a patient at your hospital, and maybe they will just tell you what's going on. You might in the hospital you will see every single day in the emergency room all kind of stories that people need help, People are at risk. Maybe they are getting bullied. Maybe they are maybe they are exposed to the weather and in the extreme cold. How do we help them? We need to have a place. We need to have a plan. I need to know, as a future doctor, I need to know how to connect those people with the help they need, and as efficiently, as effectively, and as easily as possible for them. And then you can share a personal story if you have one. You can say, you know what, this question really reminds me when this that happened to me. All right, this one was actually a bit of a longer question. One last point that I want to talk about here, because I forgot to mention it, is acknowledging power's dynamic. You don't act the same way when the situation involves you and someone in your same level, like a student and a student, compared to when it's a student and a supervisor, or a student and a shadowing doctor, or any of that, or like a co-worker and the manager, for example, right? When there is a power dynamic, number one, acknowledge that there is a power dynamic. Don't just ignore it. Acknowledge it. Number two, acknowledge that this is the risk that's gonna happen to me, and this is why I think I will do this even though there is risk to me, right? Yes, I might lose my job. Yes, I might get kicked out, or I might lose marks, for example. But I still think I have an obligation. I know it's dangerous. Maybe with power dynamics, you can also talk about maybe adjustments you can make to your approach to acknowledge that there's a power dynamic and to protect yourself from this power dynamic. All right, everyone, thank you very much. I hope this helps. And yeah, that's how we answer situational and ethical questions.